Hey, gang, my name is Carl White, and you are listening to Loan Officer Freedom, #1 podcast in the world today for loan officers. And we really appreciate you guys helping us make that happen by forwarding to 3 of your favorite loan officer friends an episode. We really appreciate it. And it's really, it's done what we wanted to get the word out more. So, hey, I've got a very special guest here, very dear friend of mine, Mr. Todd Scrima himself from Summit Funding. And he's involved with a lot of different areas of the mortgages business, been doing this for like 25, 30 years. And so I called him up and I said, Todd, you have taught a lot of classes, like a lot of classes. And I'm sure you've done them, I suppose, but I've never heard somebody just out and out interview you about you. And I just
I don't let him grow.
No, I get that. I get that. So I appreciate you. Let me interview you, and we're just this. So this is not scripted. You don't know what I'm going to ask. I know what I'm going to ask.
I rarely get nervous. Now I'm nervous.
Yeah. So I'm just going to shoot and ask you some questions here. I'm going to start with more of a kind of a tactical thing. That, like, what are 2 resources that you were like, man, if it wasn't for these 2 things, I wouldn't be where I'm at today? What's 2 of resources for you?
That's a great one, and I think that you and hopefully me are someone to some of these people. So I'll tell you 2 quick stories. One was the late Greg Frost, was a mentor of mine. Never personally coached me, but my first event when I was 6 months in the business, I saw him on stage. He taught a couple classes. I wrote down everything he said. I bought his materials, that he was peddling, that were very well done. Got to know him a little bit because I'd see him at events, but I latched on to Greg Frost, who was guys back in the day, 30 years ago. He was a loan officer that did like 80 loans a month, and I just thought that was amazing and someone to learn from. So that was one gentleman. The other one, I actually to this day have no clue who he is. I saw him at an event, and he came out on stage. He says, "Hey, I make $1 million a year. And if you follow exactly what I'm going to teach you, you will too." Well, I'm like literally 24 years old. And I wrote down everything the guy said. What he taught was a process that I coined the 2-step close. It's how to conduct a first meeting with a referral source. And I don't know how much money that made me, but it was millions and millions and millions. And I still use it every day of my life today. So I think sometimes what is the saying, when the student's ready, the teacher appears?
Yes. Funny how that works.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, so when you got started in the mortgage business, who was your very first hire? Like the first person you hired as a loan officer? And I don't mean who by name, but like what was that? What did that person do? And what did you do different once they started?
So I was a loan officer for about a year. My original mortgage mentor was Jim Kerfani, owns Sierra Pacific Mortgage, great man, still friends today. And I went to him and I said, "Hey, Jim, I want to hire 2 free assistants." He looked at me and started laughing. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I'm running out of time setting all these appointments. I just want to hire 2 people, 4 hours a day each. I can get them for free at Sac State. They just wanted to put on their resume that they have some work experience and they're good, sharp, young people, and they'll work for free. Can I get it approved?" He says, "Let me check with HR and get back to you." So he came back and he says, "HR says it's okay." I said, "Great, I'll have them start in a week or 2. So I got 2 free assistants, 4 hours a day apiece, and all they did was make my cold calls. And they had a script, and we worked on that script over and over again, like 3-4 hours, and they just started making calls. They had my calendar, and their goal was to book 2 calls a day each, so 4 appointments out in the field for me. So I was in the sales meeting, and some guy said, hey, who are those? No one in the whole company had assistants at the time. There was 40 something loan officers, not one assistant. And fast forward a year, I'm going on these 4 appointments every single day and then coming back in the afternoon doing 1 or 2 loan apps. And I become like number 4 producer out of 40 loan officers. And a year later, we're in the same sales meeting that we had every Monday. And one of the loan officers said, hey, Todd, can you teach us about this free assistant thing? So that was the first. I had dialers. I call them dialers.
Yeah. Okay.
Appointment setters.
Yeah.
Bookers.
We call them freedom callers. So
Yep.
same thing. So having gotten to know you over here the last year or so, I see that you're a master delegator. What's one thing that you still do today that you'd like to delegate to somebody else?
That is a great question. First of all, I thank you for the compliment. I was very, very, very horrible at delegation in my career, and there's different levels to it. So, like, I remember my mortgage company is 28 years old. So I'm about 2 years into it. So maybe 4 years in the business total. Okay. And I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing like 12 loans a month and love the realtors, love the clients. I get to the office one morning and it's about 7:30 in the morning. I'm looking at my door to the office. I'm in my car and I don't want to go in. And I still get kind of emotional about it because, like, you know how it's that memory. I remember like it was yesterday. So I'm like, what's going on here? Like, am I having a nervous breakdown? Like, what's going on? I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm confused. So I go in the office and I look at my phone. 32 blinking messages that had come in from the previous night, right? Looked at my desk. I mean, I don't know how many, 12 files or so sitting on my desk, paper files that were in contract that I just needed to do the new, update the information and get it to the processor. So I'm feeling pressure because those 12 loans are behind. And then I look at my credenza and a very, very fancy lead tracking system called Post-it.
Yeah.
And I had about 100 Post-its behind my credenza. And when I would call them, I would take them off, right? That was my tracking system. So I think, Carl, what I realized in that moment is I'm like, you know what? You got to know what you're good at, son. And you're pretty good at sales and you're very aggressive and you can close people, but everything else you suck at. Like, not kind of suck, like you're really bad. And if you don't get a handle on this, it's going to be an early grave. And so that's when I hired a business coach. And I just said, I'm not good at delegation. I'm not good at process. I don't know how to hire people. I don't know when to delegate too much or too little. I don't know how to create a checklist. Like, I had all of that. And then I went on this journey and I said, you know what? I'm just a control freak. And if I don't give up some of that control, then I'm not going to be able to prosper and I'm going to work 70 hours a week. So now with that said, I don't know, I had about 9 coaches that really changed my life. And one of them really worked on delegation. And he used to say over and over again, if someone can do it 80% as good as you, train it, delegate it. So going back to your question, I don't know, I wish someone, something that I want to get rid of. That's a hard one for me because I ask myself that question all the time and try and delegate more stuff. I would tell you a story of pain. 80% of my time is in mortgage. I have several other companies and I was too active in them. So a year ago, I hired someone to oversee all of them. that was one of the best decisions I ever made. Looking back, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. So I think that if you get better at delegation, you're never good enough at it, because even as experienced as I was, I should have hired that person a couple of years prior.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me one time, one of my coaches told me, Carl, if you've got something that's making you $30,000 or more per month, that warrants a full-time employee to do nothing but work on that, whatever that is. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. Probably another zero added in there, but hey, so Todd, like you've been successful at a lot of things. What is that unique skill of yours that you think? And I need you to take your humble hat off. You're a very humble guy, so I need you to take your hat off here for a second. What do you think your unique skill is that helped you become so successful?
Yeah, this is why these interviews are hard. So yes, you know, monetarily, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were bringing up some people, and it was a private meeting, and I said, I got twice, 3 times net worth of any of those famous people you just said. Yeah. I don't say that a lot because well, it's a fine line, because you can come across as super braggart, or if you're so humble, then people really don't know you. Yeah. So there's a fine line to all that. But to answer your question, I'm a really, really good learner. Like, I can process information very fast and execute very fast. So if I wanted to, well, I'll give you an example. Every year I do goals, and then I have a theme for my learning. And I don't know if I ever told you this, I think I did, but one of the reasons that I got to know you and reached out to you is not because you run a coaching company. I ran a coaching company for 20 years. So we were both successful at that. That's not why I contacted you. I contacted you because of your marketing skills. Because in 2022, my theme was I have learned a lot about sales. I want to learn all the marketing side, whether that's sales funnels, Google advertising, social media, all that stuff. And you were one of the people that really helped me on that journey. I hired 3 professional coaches, you and 2 other people. So 6 people total, or 5 people total, that I really was like, how do you do this? And you were gracious enough to get you and several of your team members on with me and several of my team members. I mean, we've done that 3 or 4 times. And you let me bug you to death with questions, because I want to learn. And whatever you tell me to do, I have a way of getting it done. Yeah. Whereas a lot of people look at a lot of people use, say, a podcast or a book for motivation. I use it for implementation. Yeah. That's my special skill. That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say you're not somebody that needs motivation. You show me, I'm on fire. My butt is burning. That I'm on fire. My feet are on fire. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. I got the motivation. I don't need you can do it, right? I know I can do it. Just show me what to do. So I like that. So a lot of people reach out to you because you're certainly we were talking about the late great Greg Frost, who a very dear place in my heart. He was my very first person that inspired me.
Really?
To show. Yeah. He was the very first, him and another guy, Brian Sachs, who's still around, right? Brian, awesome guy. But Greg Frost was the one that showed me what was possible. So when I met Greg Frost, if I remember right, I think his numbers were, that dude was 11% of all Albuquerque loans had his name on the file. Yep. 11%. Albuquerque is not a small town, right? It's not New York City, but it's not Pleasant Garden, North Carolina either, right? It's a good sized town. 11% market share. And I saw that and I went, holy cow, so I plugged those numbers in here for Tampa Bay and I went, all right, that's what I need to do. So anyway, so you have a lot of people reaching out to you as being an iconic thought leader here in the industry for decades, what's the number one thing that loan officers and branch managers and company owners, what's the number one thing they're asking you for help with?
I think right now, and Carl, you and I have spoken about this privately, but I've never seen so much fear in my life, in our industry. And before I come off half-cocked, it is the hardest time I have ever seen in mortgage in 30 years. I went through 94. I went through the financial crisis. What we're going through makes those times look like nothing. I think it's 5 times worse. So I don't want to sugarcoat this or say, oh, everything's lollipops and rainbows. It's really hard. And what happens to individuals is they are emotionally in fear. And we all sense that. I've had that. However, they just want to hear that it'll be okay. And I think that the second part to that story is there's an emotional part, but I tell people the only thing a really bad market shows you is what you're not good at, what needs work. So I think a lot of very successful loan officers, whether that success is $100 grand a year or $1 million a year, have been super humbled. We all have. And we need to look at this and say, okay, I'm playing for the hockey stick. The hockey stick is coming. Maybe it's a year away or whatever it is. We're playing for the hockey stick, but this just showed me that I'm not that special. I'm not that. We've had a really, really good 20-year run in mortgage, and now it's real work. And so I'm either going to decide to develop those skills, or I'm going to suffer through these times and spend my savings, or I'm going to get out. Those are the 3 choices. And a lot of people have come to me with those choices. I've had a lot of discussions with older loan officers that have been doing it a while, like, is it my time? I can't answer that, right? But we talk about it. Younger loan officers, like, and you and I have talked about this a few times, like some of the young loan officers we got are closing 6, 7 loans a month. And the 25 year, I've got off the top of my head, 2 25-year plus loan officers. I'm talking big producers, 50 million a year, year in, year out. Can't hardly close a loan right now because they're so in their head. So in their head.
What do you mean by that?
In their head.
What do you mean by that?
They feel embarrassed. They feel they've lost the Midas touch. They feel, do I really want to grind like I did when I was in my 20s and 30s? There's a lot of self-doubt going on, a lot. That's what I get called on today.
So not speaking of those 2 ladies or gentlemen in particular, but overall, what's the piece of information or what's the advice or what's the how-to or what's the mindset shift that you're giving these people as a general statement that helps them get out of their head and back to having confidence, a little skip in their step?
I think I always broke down problems into 2 things. One is what's the emotion and how are we going to fix it? What's the tactic, right? That's just how I think about it. So the emotion is lack of self-confidence. And then the tactic depends on what needs work. The bottleneck to the mortgage industry right now, like I always think about this. I'm like, you know how people work in business and they're like, I'm going to work on 10 things at once. And I've got, you and I both have talked like, hey, we're probably got some ADHD going on. What I've learned is just to focus on that one thing. And it may take 6 months or a year to work on that one thing, maybe 2 years. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that you focus on. You don't focus on anything else but the bottleneck. Right now, the bottleneck for 98% of loan officers is they don't have enough leads. So the tactic, the emotion is one thing. The tactic depends on the person. But usually it boils down to either not enough activity, right? Because they're so in their head over the emotion.
Yeah.
Or in some other things like, hey, they don't know how to present value. Like I'll tell you a quick story. So this is a Todd original, so I don't have a lot of original things, but this is an original thought. I was teaching a class years ago and I came up with this story. I said, look, I'm a doctor. I make people close their eyes. So I was teaching a class. I said, close your eyes. I know it seems weird, but close your eyes. I said, I'm a doctor and I just hired you. There was like 50 people in the class. I said, you're 50 salespeople. I just got approved by the FDA for a cancer pill. And you take one pill and any cancer in your body is gone in a week. Just got approved. You're my 50 salespeople for the world. We're going to sell the pill for $10,000. Your personal commission is $2,000 a pill. Okay, open your eyes. I said, are you going to struggle to sell that product? They're like, no, we're saving lives. I said, okay, how much? So you're not going to be scared to walk in the hospital. You're not going to be scared to present to 1,000 doctors. You're not going to be scared to call on a single doctor. You're not going to be scared to do a podcast. You're not, right? Because you truly feel like you're saving the entire planet from cancer. Yes. Okay, how much money are you going to make? Someone said millions. I said, no, billions. All you 50 people will be billionaires. What's the moral to the story? And they struggled. I said, the moral to the story is, if you truly feel that what you're selling has value, you will not struggle to sell it. If you feel that you don't add enough value, then you're not going to make confident sales calls. Matter of fact, you may not make many sales calls at all because you don't believe in yourself. Because in our business, you're the product. And so I love that story because to this day, it still resonates with me. And I think as long as I'm adding more value to people's lives, I'm not going to struggle to sell.
Yeah. Brother, that's a great story. I would say that would solve about 90% of most people's problems, for sure. So let me, you talk about fears. Let's kind of peel the curtain back a little bit. What is your greatest fear?
My fear has always been the same. And that's about 90% of people's fear is the same. Fear of loss. So fear of death, fear of losing your income, fear of, all kinds of things. The problem with that is that it takes some double think to realize that it's kind of a false fear. And so it took me a long time to get to a point to where I'm like, okay, I got tons of capital. I don't have any debt. Like I really can't screw this up, unless I'm doing drugs or something.
Yeah.
So like, I really can't screw this up. But still to this day, Carl, I have, what drives me today is helping people and helping loan officers get more deals. That's what I'm passionate about. I love business. I love running companies. But I still, in back of my mind, if I'm super honest, I have a little fear that it could all go away.
It's funny, and having gotten to know you a little bit, and you've shared, by me asking, you've kind of opened up the back room, so to speak. Let me peek in under the hood. It's impressive engine that you're running there, and it's got a lot of value to it. So when we look at it from a straight business mind, we go, this is not what you've already said. This is not going to go away, but yet we still have that fear in our head. But it could, even though it's not a rational fear. How do you push through that? Or do you?
Well, I last 7 years, I decided, hey, I'm going to work on my emotional health. So I I've been in therapy, seeing professional therapists, 2 different ones. Saw one for a couple of years. He unfortunately passed away. Found another guy, Bill, and I work on it because what I realized is that fear for me was so deep that it created anxiety. And I remember, again, one of those like I call them magic moments when you really get slapped in the head. And I sat down with my therapist. I'd been seeing her about 6 months. I sat down, she had this rocking chair. And I sat down and she looked at me and didn't say hi or nothing. Her name was Joan. Joan looked at me and said, you understand you suffer from anxiety, right? I was like, what are you talking about? She says, she rattled off some things like, you sometimes have trouble sleeping at night because your brain's going, right? Yeah. When you wake up in the morning, there's no meditation. There's no, even if you're working out, you're thinking about stuff. Yeah. And she just rattled off a few things. She says, that what you have is called anxiety, and I know how to fix it. And that was, she gave me this assignment in that meeting. She said, your assignment this week is this: you're going to describe your anxiety. So I put it on paper, 1 or 2 pages, and hand it in next week. So I met with her next week. I had done the assignment, and she read it out loud. And what I told her was, there's 2 men on my shoulder. One is like 4 inches high. He looks like Gandalf or Jesus, and he's whispering in my ear every day, Todd, you killed that meeting. Oh, you closed that deal. Oh, you really helped that person today. Then in the paper, I wrote down, there's another guy on my left shoulder. He's about 12 inches high. And for some reason, don't ask me why, he's naked and he's red. He's got little horns coming out of his head. And he whispers in my ear all day, Todd, you missed that opportunity. You totally blew that meeting. Man, you lost your cool in that meeting. That set a lot of people off. Man, you screwed up that decision. So she read it out loud and she says, here's the fix. For the rest of your life, the guy in your right shoulder is now 12 inches tall. And the red guy goes down to 4 inches. And for some reason, that totally clicked for me. And she said, it's okay to have a healthy dose of fear, just not as much as you have it. So just let the positive person on the right shoulder be bigger and listen to the little guy a little bit. And that was one of the best stupid, simple coachings I've ever gotten in my life.
Brother, I really like that. And I bet a lot of people can relate to that. Gosh, man, I'm looking at the clock. We're at the top of the hour again. Hey, let me ask, this is one of my favorite questions, and I'm really looking forward to your answer to it. So the president of the United States gives you a call, whoever he or she is, right? So the president of the United States gives you a call for a special project that they're working on. What expertise of yours are they looking to tap into?
That's a great question. My simple answer is strategic thought. And so I think, and I'm actually shocked presidents don't do this. Like if I was, let me reverse this. If I was president of the United States, I would have a group of people that saw things clearly. Oprah comes to mind. I'm a big fan of Ed Milet. I'm a big fan of Alex Hermosi. Just smart people. Yeah. And I would meet with them every single week and say, I got these issues. What do you think? Give me a 360 on it. I would be good at being one of those people. Problem solving, thinking outside the box, things like that. So I think that's a skill that I have. Yeah. A lot of other not so good skills, but I have a way of seeing things clearly. I don't know how to, it's not because I think I'm that smart. I think I'm that experienced where I've made so many mistakes in my life. And I always tell people, learn me once, but don't learn me twice. So if I make a mistake, I will write it down. I will make it part of a process, put it on the checklist so that I don't make it again. Does not mean that I'm perfect, but it helps when you have a bunch of experiences. And just like you coaching people, you've seen the same things over, you start to see the patterns, right? Same thing.
Yeah. I know it's a cliche, but it's so true that, I learn more from my failures. And it's so cliche-ish. I even hate saying it, but I never think of failures because it's not a failure. I learned something. It was a learning process. So that made it a success. But in using that word, if we can, so I got one more question I want to ask you, and I appreciate your vulnerability, and I feel safe to ask you this. What's been one of your biggest failures and what did you learn from it?
My biggest failures, and this has happened twice to me, so I didn't learn the first time, is not doing enough research on, like, being in business with someone and not doing enough research on the character of the person.
Mm.
And in both cases, they struggled with narcissism. And if you talk to a lot of psychologists, they'll tell you it's incurable. Most of them will say that.
Yeah.
And so being in business with someone, or it could be, loan officers listen to this, it could be that realtor that just beats the hell out of you no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And you should fire them, right? It's just, you're never going to succeed with them. And that happened to me as a loan officer as well. But, it can happen in business relationships. So picking the wrong people to do business with and not really being clear on their character. That's my answer.
Dude, that's I love that.
Just a quick idea. Can we, like, at a later date, can I do this to you?
So I feel my insides tightening up asking that, because you're so much smarter than me. But I would actually, whether or not we release that episode is up to. but I would love to do it just to learn from what you asked me. Yeah, you talk about what you just talked about reminds me of something somebody told me. He said, Carl, I don't work on relationships. I find relationships that just work. And I thought, my best relationships, brother, they just work.
Yeah.
And the ones I'm constantly having to work on, it's just too darn hard. And sometimes, when we have like like brothers or sisters or moms or whatever, uncle, somebody that we're struggling with, we go, yeah, but we're family. We need to help make that work. I get it. It's not a catch-all, but I really work on, some relationships just work and I feed into those. And the ones that are hard, I just like kind of step away a little bit,
Yeah, I agree with that. I would also add to that and you and I had this, I called you for some coaching about a year ago, and you said you have a who problem, not a how problem. Mm-hmm. And so you got to be careful with that kind of feelings and logic, just doing business with your buddies that don't have the skills to execute. So that's the danger to that. So I agree. It should feel comfortable. I hired a lot of leaders this last year, and I call it the cell phone test. So if someone calls your cell phone, do you really want to answer it? Like, gladly answer it. Hey, buddy, how you doing? What can I do for you?
Yeah.
And if you have people in business that you do business with and you cringe when they call you, that's what you don't want. You also, if you just have a bunch of buddies but no one gets any work done, or they don't have the right skills for the position, is the other problem.
Brother, I like that. I just got a visual image. Like, if somebody's calling me and I cringe, then the last thing I'm going to go out and do is do more prospecting, because then my brain tells me I'll be doing more cringing, and I don't want to do more. I don't want to do any cringing, much less more cringing. And so I would sabotage my business and do less work, because I want to do less at all cost for me anyway. I'm a cringe avoidance personality. So good stuff. Hey, Todd, man, great stuff. I really appreciate you, brother. Somebody wants to reach out to you. What's the best way to do that?
So I'll give you my email, obviously social media, but my personal email is tscrima, TSCRIMA @summitfunding.net. And so I've only done this one other time, is give out my cell phone, but I think sometimes people just need to talk to you. You can voice text me or text me. Please don't blow up my phone. But I'll give you my cell phone, just if you want some help. I can help people. It's 916-769-9031.
Perfect. And I don't mean to complicate this, and we might edit this. No, I'm not going to edit. And you do a podcast too, Todd. What's the name of the podcast?
That's a good question. Be your best. If you just Google my name, it'll come up. There'll be a few that come up. I do one called Mastering Money that is just about wealth creation. I do one called Mastering Business that is just about to all business people. So there's a few of them out there, but Be Your Best is probably the best known one.
Good stuff, man. I didn't know you had another one called Mastering. Now I got to go. I just put a little star beside that. Yeah,
I
if
think
you want to,
I think it's a great way to help people. Like everything that you do, I've listened to several of Steve's. I mean, it's really good content, and I think it's like I look at podcasts like almost like a love. Like there's people you don't know, you'll never know. They heard one thing and they executed on it, and they're like, damn, that Carl White 10 years ago taught me that on a podcast, So I think it's a great way to give back. Is what
I
I'm
love
saying.
the ripple effect, man. I'm like I'm thinking of one name right now, the guy that really helped me out early in my career. He's not in our industry. Nobody would know, virtually nobody here would know who he is. And I talked to him not too long ago, and I said, brother, all the tens of thousands of people that you've touched and didn't even know it through helping me, and I'm just one. What about the other thousands of people? Your ripple effect is just enormous. So I just love the ripple effect. I saw a thing the other, we have this heat map thingy that Diane does in my office. You've met Diane, brilliant lady. So anyway, we got this little heat map thingy, and it shows us when somebody's watching or listening to the podcast. And around the clock at any one given time, it's incredibly high odds somebody's listening. So like literally at 3:50 in the morning, somebody's listening to the podcast. And it's so humbling, to think about that. I'll get up in the morning, go ride my bicycle, and I'm listening to, say, your podcast. And I go, oh, I guess people do listen to these things at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's a really cool thing. So anyway, hey brother, I know we're up on the clock. So Todd, thanks so much. I appreciate you, my man. For our friends that are listening to this, boy, great episode. And Todd and I are going to ask you for a quick favor. Forward this episode to 3 of your favorite loan officer friends. They'll appreciate it, and we will. And if you'll stop and do that right now, that's the thanks that you can give us for bringing this to you every week and giving you our best stuff, asking for only one thing in return. Forward this to 3 of your friends. So we just want to know that we can count on you for that. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you on the next episode of Loan Officer Freedom. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.